Welcome to our webinar about the higher powers of the mind, and we're going to call this one Unleash Your Higher Mind, how to use your higher power. So it's all higher on this one. The reason that we're doing this, as you might have seen on the emails, is because many people find they can't make those personal development techniques work in the way that they want. And perhaps you've had that. Have you had the experience of your personal development techniques not working at all, or not working in the way that you want? Or do you find yourself unable to make much headway in your life transformation? Things seem to remain more or less the same for some people, or they go in a high and then come down to a low again, this kind of thing. Perhaps you find that you're spending too much time with negativity. Your old negative patterns of sort of come and go, and they wash in and out like a wave, or you can't create the lifestyle that you want, or maybe there's a difficulty attracting a great relationship or enhancing your existing one. And in general, you have challenges that make your mind difficult to become reloaded or remolded to accept wealth and love and happiness and freedom as your normal state. Now, you do follow the techniques carefully. A few things which are associated with those techniques do improve, but perhaps you rarely achieve the complete goal that you're aiming for. Now, a lot of people have this. This is quite normal. Don't worry about it. It depends on a whole variety of things, and we're going to give you the way to knock that on the head as we go through this presentation. And it can become very disappointing, I know that, as well as putting you off diving more deeply into the mechanisms of success. So this session is for those people who need help to solve those issues, but also for the people who want to take it to the highest level possible. This is what we really need, is how can we get to the maximum personal development abilities and powers. Now, one of the great mysteries for people who do not have much success with their personal development or self-improvement is, why has that happened to them? They put in the work, but why have they been picked out of the whole universe of people not to have it working for them? Why can't they just visualize something, affirm something, and it turns up, like so many people suggest, or find happens for them too? Because you may get lots of things working brilliantly, and then you have a period of things not working. Now, the thing is this, that all activities of mind are prior to everything. So you do your mind work. What can possibly have gone wrong for it not to deliver? Because that's just the way life works. We'll be looking at that as we proceed through. We'll be looking at the highest of the high as well, what that is and how you can get that. But after we've covered all the details and steps, let's first of all, before we go down that track, consider this vital point that is unknown to most of the teachers of personal development, and they really don't know about the proper use of the mind. There are many people who mean well, who teach personal development or mind work or something of that nature, self-improvement or what have you, but they haven't got the whole picture. They've only got a little slice of the pizza. So let's look and see what it is, what's meant to happen for you. All personal development techniques are really only aimed to awaken, to turn on, and to activate the life creative power which allows you to manifest what you want. And this is the crucial secret. Why is that? Because people normally believe that it is the affirmations and visualizations and other techniques they perform which actually cause the result in their lives. This is an error, a fundamental error, even a grave mistake, because these methods that you use, that you've learned, are only actually signaling devices for something else. Okay? All those things that you do, many people have great faith in them, but in fact they're only signaling devices. Just like the accelerator on the car, you push it down, it signals the engine to pump in more fuel so it can go faster. Now, sometimes if you're lucky with these ordinary level techniques, the message can get through, but it is rare. Instead, sometimes completely the wrong instruction is given because they're not really taught properly how to do these things, and it causes the opposite to happen. Many people find that when they're doing their techniques, that's the complete opposite happens, and they wonder why. You know, they wanted to do something to get a lot of money, and then they do some techniques, and then they're in an even worse financial situation. We'll see why as we go through that. So what is it that actually does the job? There is within you an invisible mechanism which is the creator of all your experiences. So every part of your mind, the conscious, unconscious, subconscious, preconscious, and superconscious, act upon this invisible mechanism and influence it. I'm going to tell you what it is as we proceed. First of all, let's just understand the mechanism itself. No one knows actually what it is or how it does what it does unless they're guided to its revelation of what it is by being fortunate enough to study the work of someone or people who have researched it, which I was fortunate enough to do. But what we do know is that it is the gateway to the actual creative and manifesting force of life. It is the sort of golden fleece and the holy grail which people have sought for thousands of years. Now, everything you do with your life-enhancing techniques is aimed to activate this invisible mechanism, whether you are aware of it or not. So the whole goal of your life, of your desire for self-improvement and personal development, is to unleash that power of the invisible formula that we have there, this incredible mechanism. It's not really the best word, mechanism. It implies mechanical, but it has sort of mechanical effects in a way, but it is some sort of faculty. And the idea for you is to use it to materialize whatever it is that you want. See, every religion and spiritual path points to that, but usually when you come through those sorts of organizations, what you find is there's lots of hoops you have to jump in order to be able to use it consciously. Lots of rules and regulations, morals and ethics, and ways of behavior and actions to take, and on it goes. And it's very, very hard to get through that. But as you begin this process properly, what you're going to find, and this is very, very important, is that the cage of your past that bars you from accessing and expressing your invisible power is weakened. So you have around you this cage, I call it, and holding in patterns. We know we've discussed these many times before. Your conditioning, negativity, all that kind of stuff there. It is filled with all the memories of past events that were negative and difficult to handle and damaging, etc., etc. But as you start to access the invisible mechanism, I'm going to show you as we go through, then what you find is that the contents of the cage, of the contraction forces, start to flow into your consciousness. You become aware of them. All this negative conditioning starts to go. Now, that is what sabotages your life, undermines everything, undermines your power of expression, restricts you from success with your life creation techniques. Now, this is a very great paradox, a real catch-22. You want to clear yourself of this rubbish that was loaded onto you without your permission. And as you do the process of starting to create a better life, up comes this stuff for a run, and it absolutely sabotages you. So this is something you need to know. This is why people give up on personal development when they begin, because they don't realize that's what they're trying to do. That's what's trying to happen. And these hidden cage, let's call them, instructions, coupled with your unconscious, unexpressed energies and emotional blockages, these are the patterns which undermine your entire life. Now, you might be aware of that. They are very slippery and hard to grasp and identify, because the ego, the sense of self, is so strong, the personal mind is so strong, that let's say you're expressing yourself in a way that you think is perfectly justifiable and normal, but then what you find is that it doesn't work in the relationship thing that you're dealing with. Well, then it's very difficult indeed, and it could have very, very profound effects. But if you can catch what's happening, then what you find is that you can free yourself and allow the higher parts of the mind, the superconscious, above the superconscious. The superconscious is the best way of communicating with this highest intelligence there, and you can start to open to and access its higher powers. This is the whole game, as you'll see as we go through it. It's shocking and stunning what is possible, as every great spiritual teacher has told us. Very hard to believe a lot of these things. So first of all, this invisible mechanism is impossible to grasp intellectually. Many, many people spend lifetimes, I suppose, in their philosophy of reading thousands of things and trying to work it out and arguing and getting PhDs and all this stuff. The intellect can't do it. So if you're doing that, save yourself time. It can't grasp it. It's not the job of the intellect to get in touch with this highest part of the mind, because you can't grab it with your hands, even though it is the most powerful and creative force in the universe. So let's unwrap its secrets, save you that decade of trying to find out for yourself. And it is staggeringly powerful knowledge, which everyone needs to know, particularly in these upcoming tumultuous times. And you will be amazed when you start to think of this. It is a mind blow, there's no doubt about it, and positively shocking moments of realization of what you have within you waiting to be discovered will come up. Because when you get it, when you suddenly think, whoa, hold it a second, is that what it means? I had no idea of that. And this is what you need to know. So always remember that the reason that your law of attraction, or whatever you're using, does not work for you is one single reason, and that is you are not getting in touch directly with this higher mind, with this invisible mechanism, because you need to practice in special ways in order to do it. And I'm going to give you exactly what the difference is as we go through. So let's get the facts first of all. First of all, your mind has no power to create experiences. It can only instruct and request the invisible mechanism that actually does everything to respond. What is the personal mind? It's nothing more than a contraction of the universal consciousness. It's a little bit, like a little ice block off an iceberg, a little bit there. And when you meditate a lot, the personal mind can be released and its concepts, which is what holds it together, transcended, and therefore it can expand back to universal consciousness. And on the way of doing this, the mind reveals all its powers. I'll say that again. The way to access the higher powers of your mind, this highest intelligence that there is to proceed with your meditative practices, with your actions in the world, which I'll explain as we go on, to create what you want. And that process of expanding back to universal consciousness literally reinflates the personal mind, and automatically, it's automatic, these siddhis or powers, siddhis as they call them in India, these powers reveal themselves to you. You don't have to try and make them happen. You, the personal mind, has to sort of get out of the way, quite frankly. And this is it. It's a contraction of consciousness. Consciousness holds all powers. You relax your personal mind, all powers reveal themselves to you. Now, secondly, most people are at least partially aware that what happens to them in their life has something to do with their past history. Actually, although you would be surprised at the number of people who dismiss that reality. They believe that the events of their life are all random or not connected with them personally or anything else, like they're delivered to them by some sort of mystery of life. But let's not go down that track. That'll waste another decade or two for you. Basically, what you have to do to release these higher powers, first of all, is to come back to what you actually are right now. Nothing complex, that you don't have to grow wings and become an angel, nothing like that. What are you now? You are a body, mind, feeling system or being who moves around on planet Earth living out experiences. That's all you need to consider. This is your first step. Accept this instrument that you live in and as and through. Get that going. That's a huge help, believe me, to speed this whole thing up. And here's the $64,000 question then. Okay, if that's what you are, what exactly is it that causes all those experiences that you live out? Think about that for a moment. Have you any idea at all what is that which causes and lives out and creates and forms all those experiences? Now, there is obviously something that actually does the job of creating or running the universe and having all its adventures. And there is also something that your whole system does. This body, mind, feeling instrument does at a very deep level to instruct or cooperate with the universe to bring you all those things that happen. Now, notice what I said there, the words that I've given you there. They're very important. To instruct or cooperate, or both, with the universe to bring you all those things. You see, here you are, this body, mind, feeling instrument, walking around on the planet, doing your thing. How on earth do you cause coincidences to happen, the right people to come at the right time, the opportunities to come your way, to open the book at the right page, all these sorts of things? There's some vaster, far higher intelligence than we can ever comprehend and imagine, but we are soaked in it like a fish is soaked in the sea. We are with it all the time. And it is this activity of cooperating and instructing the universe, even if you're not doing it consciously, which most people aren't, the subconscious does it. What happens is that you are totally unaware of it, but it is accessing the invisible mechanism on a continual basis. So occasionally now, from now on, I'm going to give you a number of things you can do. Consider this reality. What is the invisible mechanism? It's certainly not visible, it's invisible. So every now and again during the day, just stop for a moment, just before you start the car, and think about it. Look around yourself. Really take the blinkers off and look around and think, what is it? What could it possibly be that is doing this? Because that's a great help for you to get in touch with it more and more and more. And we can look and see that quite obviously, what we call the mind, we live in a mind-based universe. Now, this is a dramatic transformation from what most people think and believe. They think we live in some sort of Newtonian physics, cause and effect universe. And yes, those things happen. But in fact, we might as well take the knowledge from the ancient beings who meditated for decades in their mountain caves, etc., and accept that they have shown us that we live in a mind-based universe. I've said this a few times recently. And until you have that completely clear and understood, your life will be a series of confusing challenges. If you have confusion, if you have challenges, if things aren't working in the way that you want them to work, do this, and that will help clear things up more than anything else for you. And what does that mean? Mind-based universe. Because what mind is, from our universities and academia, as well as traditional societies, they have all their ideas on mind too. Let's just look briefly at that quickly. The mind is divided into, as we said, the unconscious, the subconscious, the preconscious, the conscious, and the superconscious. These divisions are only there to make the whole mind easy to understand. It is in fact one faculty. But, of course, there is a paradox. No one has ever seen a mind. No one is able to grasp one or put it in a test tube or in a flask. So you're dealing with something absolutely invisible at its basic level. Now, when you start to put into practice the proper methods and techniques to use the mind as it's been designed to be used, you'll find that there is no steering wheel or pedals or brakes or anything to operate. Suddenly you have this thing called mind, but what do you do with it? How do you know what to do with it? Well, in fact, it's very, very difficult to know what to do with it, and we're going to bypass the necessity of doing that. Fortunately, we can take the advantage of those who have, for thousands of years, explored the mind, particularly from the Himalayan region, and let's cut to the chase straight away rather than digging around philosophy and imagination and those sorts of things. Leave out Newtonian physics and aim more towards the quantum physics end of the spectrum, those sorts of ideas and opinions, a very new science. So the fundamental difference between the past considerations of how the universe works, which is cause and effect, and the quantum ideas we will use, is that the observer of anything in life, i.e. you and me, can move, shape, and form and affect matter and do all sorts of things with it that we have no knowledge of consciously in science as yet, but the traditional societies say it's actually infinite, as do the leaders of great religions that we all follow in the West. All those big religions, they've come with the same sort of advice as I'm giving you here now. So let's look at it in a simple form. Let's say that you are a movie special effects studio technician. You're sitting at the computer, and what are you doing at the computer? You are manipulating the digital information, the ones and the zeros. As you know anything about computers, it's ones or zeros, that's what it is. And they are operating the mechanisms of the digital world. And what they can do is create, as you've seen in the movies, perfect lifelike images, scenes, whole movies, in fact. So there is this person or people sitting at the desk in the movie studio, working with the keys and the graphics kind of instruments, and they are able to create a perfect, life-perfect experience there. Now, just think of that for a moment. That's easy to imagine. You can go and see people doing it. But for you, the thing to think about now is that is how you are creating your life. This is what you're doing. You are, by your intentional focus on what it is that you are thinking about or wanting to do, you are causing the subatomic particles, those dancing sort of dots and sparks and the things they're building all the colliders for and all that, trying to find out the secret mechanism of it. What that means is that these subatomic particles are susceptible, or maybe it's something deeper than the subatomic particles, maybe it's an invisible realm, whatever it is susceptible to you, you're already doing it, creating something in life. The power of intention, you hear the New Age people talking about that all the time. The power of focus, the power of concentration. What are you doing? You're gathering your forces. You don't know what these forces are, It's all automatic for most people. You're gathering those forces and you're aiming them in a direction for a result. Now, admittedly, most people, it's a subconscious activity. Their old past conditioning is just doing that for them, playing out their loop patterns. But a few people have got their heads above the waves and are beginning to take advantage of ancient secret knowledge to be able to manipulate the forms of life to become what they want. And they have to use that invisible mechanism that nobody can see, but we are all completely in and using consciously and deliberately to create your life experiences. Okay? So what you can say is that that focus on the event you want causes the, like the ones and zeros in the digital world, causes the subatomic particles to dance to the music of your mind and its desires. That's actually what's going on. You are doing it every day of the week. Now, in the ancient times, they go up to the mountains, meditate in their hermitages, and like scientists, test their powers. They get back to the core of who and what they are, and then they're able to create what they want. Now, what happens is, as you start creating, as I said, everything that blocks you in your memory, blocks your free creativity, if you could remove that freezing up inside, which is what conditioning is, it's a lot of freezing kind of things that go right through the muscles of the body and everything, every other part of the cells. If you could dissolve and eliminate those, this power of contacting the invisible mechanism would be given back to you automatically, because the only thing between you and that is the freezing. It's the fight, flight, and freeze response that's gone there within you and holding you back. Okay? The subatomic particles or whatever's below them are continually responding to the signals that you send it, be they conscious or unconscious or subconscious or preconscious, it doesn't matter. But what you have is an incomprehensible power. It is far greater than anything you can possibly imagine, and there are no agents between you personally and it. There's nobody saying, you've got to pass through me to get to that power. Okay? It's the power that's in every cell of your body. It's within yourself very deeply. You don't have to ask anyone permission to live a great life, nor do you have to be a special person in some way to gain the benefits that are available. All you have to do is to know how to free yourself of those past memories that hold you back and how to contact the invisible mechanism of life. And all you've got to contact it is your mind, unconscious, subconscious, preconscious, conscious, superconscious. That's the mind. Superconscious is the best way to do it because it's the clearest and the most powerful, but the invisible mechanism is where you're going. That's what you need to do. Now, what you need is to work at ever-deepening levels, to take time to get in touch with your feeling engine, and this is the important part. The invisible mechanism is pure feeling. So feeling is the key, pure feeling. And if you can get to the stage where you can feel very deeply powerful, blissful, delightful energetics within yourself, then you are in the right state to manifest, to create what you want. It is your feeling level that decides how successful you're going to be. So if you have been unsuccessful with your techniques in the past, where you try to create what you want, it is that you were in the wrong level of feeling. That's what stopped it. And I'm not talking about emotion here. I'm talking about the kind of feeling that arises when you do the proper consciousness practices, the deep meditative practices They get deeper just through practice, obviously. There are many kinds of different things you can do to bring the mind into order very, very rapidly as well, but they're all based on feeling plus images, thoughts, whatever. But it's the feeling, 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 feeling. And this is very important. I'm going to show you how to start to do it. Now, if you believe that thoughts are the superior power, because most self-improvement people suggest this is the case, and that's not a good idea. It's true to a certain extent, but only because the holding of thoughts and beliefs that life does not work in this way is a great block to you. But there's nothing odd about that either, because you've been brought up in all social situations to believe that. It's a big hurdle to get over, because you know how popular affirmations are and all these things, and they're fine, but they are peripheral to the pure energy and feeling of the invisible mechanism. You know when you're going towards, in inverted commas, because it's right there with you all the time, this invisible mechanism. I'll give you some tips in a second about that. But the problem for you is that since you were a child, you've been living in a semi-trance. This is the automatic state, but you play out a semi-conscious life. Sometimes your mind is present with life, what you're doing, where you're going. Others, it's wandering around, daydreaming, fantasizing, memorizing, thinking through things. You know, you're not here, you could be anywhere. You're not in the moment, as they say. Now, what that means is that that way of living just pours through you, and you're just sort of along for the ride of life. You can't have full awareness of the countless streams of thoughts and images that flash up from your subconscious mind, for instance. What you need to do is to bring yourself to build every split second of your ordinary life into one that is more and more conscious. Now, you can't do every split second. It's too hard. If you can do it half hour a day, that's great. That will make a big difference to yourself. But if you want to manifest what you want by accessing the highest part of your mind, that invisible mechanism, then you need to have this new habit of sensing deeper, ever deepening feeling going on as much as possible. You need to free yourself from being an automaton, someone who's on automatic, who just can drive along thinking of other things, listening to the radio without being present with the driving. This is what we all do, of course. And also, if you want to be a successful manifestor and life creator. So what you need is to believe that events happen in your life because your mind creates them. Can you get to that? Can you take yourself to that point? Can you look at not everything, not all the earthquakes and what have you, and people behaving oddly, you meet somebody who's mad, and what can you do? But let's just say in your ordinary everyday life, the choices you've made, the experiences that you have created and decided to do, if you can bring yourself back to that as your first step, that your mind has created those events, then you are on a very strong path, because most people don't believe that. If anything goes wrong, they look to blame and complain. Have you noticed that? Blaming, complaining, whinging, whining, all that kind of thing. They can't take the responsibility into themselves that they might have had something to do with it, you see? So if you do a little bit of manifesting, I've talked about manifesting many times in the past, if you can do a little bit of manifesting, in other words, you can hold in your mind something, maybe somebody you know from some time ago, and you decide that they're going to ring you up and talk to you about living in the south of France. They have no intention of living in the south of France previously. You don't know anything whether they're interested in France or anything like that, but you do that. Just living in the south of France. And you hold that as a, what would you call it, an impression, a strong impression, and you can use any technique for that, but you get yourself into a great feeling state before you do it, either through your traditional meditative practice. You get into that state, you place that inside yourself, you imagine Joe doing that, ringing you up and saying something about living in the south of France. Usually those things take no longer than a week. I've found with all the people that I've taught these things to, it's about a week that it happens. Sometimes it can go over that couple of weeks, but that's usually a week or even a day or two sometimes. Don't make it too easy. Don't suggest somebody who you know is going to live in the south of France and was going to ring you up anyway. Don't make it easy. Just do it as a pure mind-based thing. And once you've done that a few times, something very interesting is going to have to take place in your mind. You're going to consider, my God, that worked, how extraordinary that worked. Next logical thought. Therefore, that must be how life works. That must be how the whole of my life actually works. Because any manifestation you can create proves you are a life creator. You have to then think, what is it that's creating my life all the time now? If I can do that consciously, I can get them to ring me or any other little event. What am I doing in my everyday life? And you've got to stop, sit back, have a cup of tea or whatever. Sit back and start to consider, what is it within me that has created my life to be what it is so far? What is it? What is this invisible mechanism that does that? What has activated that invisible mechanism to cause that to happen? Because if you want more money or a better relationship or a new job or anything else, and you don't take that into consideration, that something within you placed you in those previous circumstances that you now want to change, then what hope have you got except looping, repeating the loops over and over again in life? Now, that's not a good idea. It doesn't deliver. If you want to change, it obviously hasn't delivered. So you start to think, okay, you know that things have been embedded into you through your upbringing. That's all very clear by now. And the ways to get rid of it are always to go for something better in your life. That's called self-improvement. You have to understand how to process things out, obviously, as they come up. Otherwise, they can overpower you and overwhelm you, and you think, oh, life is terrible after all. That's right. But your single concept that you need is that you are in touch with the invisible mechanism. It creates everything. It responds to your own mind, all levels of your mind as I've described. And therefore, if you can pull together a system to actually cause the invisible mechanism to give you instantaneously, even sometimes, the new things that you want, that is how to live from now on. I'm suggesting you have a transformation of your life from now on, from the time we've completed this session, for the rest of your life, because this is how life works. You only need to do a little bit of manifesting training. Things come along. There's the proof. Just the facts, ma'am, as the old press boys used to say. And those are the facts. I imagine this person ringing me up, speaking about living in the south of France. 5 days later, that's exactly what happened. See that? That's not Newtonian physics. This is more the quantum physics end of the spectrum. All right. So, okay, that belief or understanding has been bred out of you by the mass hypnosis of advertising, education, politics, religion, opinions, blog articles, whatever it is. The whole of the mass of society is in a dream. And this is called a consumer dream. They're in this dream. They're all living this cause and effect lifestyle out. And eventually it will become a cropper, as we've seen many times in the past, because they don't realize that what is within their mind is being projected into their life as the experience is. Do you see how silly it is to live like that? When you have access to the invisible mechanism that keeps the whole thing going? Silly, isn't it? So what you have to do, and this is the hardest thing that people do, is you have belief is the essential requirement, and you have to come to the point that you have no doubt from now on, this is how life works. I know your conditioning will argue with that. The world, society, the press, the media, everything will argue with that. But it is absolutely essential that you get to the point where your core belief is it is a mind-based universe. As I say, if you doubt it, just prove it. Just do some manifesting or read widely. Try and bring up and dig out things that science can't explain or the Newtonian physics can't explain. There's many stories. We all know thousands of stories of this kind of thing that prove something else is going on. And so why be a mug? You know, I thought that myself. I didn't believe things. I thought, why am I a mug? Why am I thinking like that? What a stupid thing to think like. When I can see this happens and that happens and that happens, and oh my God, there's no doubt something else is going on. If you get in touch with that something else and you learn how to do it, it will reward you in ways that you can hardly believe. Yes, there'll be challenges to go through. There always are when you're growing. Every part of yourself that grew, your teeth and your, you know, knees, if you're very tall, ache sometimes. And yes, there can be. It's never overpowering, by the way. It's just a stretch, you know, really a bit. So what you want to do, big leap or otherwise, is get to that belief, because that was the biggest thing that blocked me. And the reason is that so much of what is flushed out by this understanding and proving, because it shakes you, you know, a bit. You think, hang on a sec, I didn't know that's how life worked. Why have I wasted the last 50 or 60 years living like this and not knowing this? Okay. If you can change your mind to accept that, then there are many other things that can help you. They've been known by a few people in the past that can make differences to you. So we're now edging into the spiritual. Remember, the word spirit means fuel or energy. That's what spirit is. Motor spirit was petrol. So the spiritual or energetic cosmic powers. Cosmic is the cosmos, the universe. So the energetic universal powers of creation and sustenance of this universe, which is the invisible mechanism, must be brought into your daily experience at every opportunity. If you can go for the central core of your life as enlightenment, as illumination, as energy, you know, fabulous kinds of things, then you will find life transforms. It becomes an incredible play, an incredible series of extraordinary, deeply meaningful events, And the yogis, who are the people who've studied this the most and have the whole system worked out, most people don't follow the whole system. They like the early bit, you know, the simple postures and things, but they've got the whole thing. It's hard to find the whole thing. You have to go to someone who knows. But what they speak of is that inside the spinal cord, there is an electrical pulse of life, a flash, not flashing on and off, but an intensely bright line of power and energy that is bright, they say, is 1,000 times brighter than the sun. People of near-death experiences, they have that, they see this light as well. You hear of the divine light. But what that is the visible expression of the invisible mechanism. It is not the invisible mechanism, it is an expression of it, a peak experience as they call it. So you do not have to have that experience for this work to deliver for you, but you may find at times that this divine light, which is also known as grace in the West, amazing grace, may very well appear to you either visually, internally, or as an increasing energy. It is very common, if you do this work to get in touch with the invisible mechanism, to get into a relationship with it, that you will start to glow. You will become incredibly attractive with this energetic attraction, this atmosphere that you have with yourself. You'll have this build up within you, and you will see things that are light. If you read some of the stories very famous guy, Gopi Krishna, his name was, a little public servant in Kashmir. And he had these experiences and everything turned into light for him. His inner being, he could see within himself, glowing light, pulsing energetics going on biologically. This is all biology and transpersonal biology. And he could see trees glowing with light, very, very common. They put you in hospital and put you on pills if you say that. But beautiful experiences can be had of this light. So that's your first hint that there is some other power in existence that not only can give you experiences like that, but can also make your life very happy because it is responsive, you see. And once you learn to place yourself in the position of life creator, and they call it saying your prayers in the religions, and you can cause the invisible mechanism, energy, to give your children a nice day at school, or your wife or husband a lovely day at work, or you can cause yourself to meet someone you've been thinking of for a long time, or you can have a day where you do something really creative. It's ordinary things too. You know, people who have these higher experiences get on with their work. They're usually writing books about it, of course, but they get on with their work. And the interesting thing is that it is accompanied by deep, powerful, blissful, ecstatic feelings. You carry on with your daily life. People looking at you would know no different. You're not a light bulb walking along or anything like that. People will feel very attracted to you, definitely, and very happy in your company. But it's just something that you've lost touch with because you've been drawn to the surface of your personal mind with all the stress and involvements and conditioning and all that stuff we talked about. It's very difficult to remain conscious while you're under deep stress, or you know, you haven't had a good night's sleep and things like that. So your dream world is the tip, sort of the waves of the ocean of the invisible mechanism. And you see these fantastic kind of experiences, just exactly the same as life. They are so real that it's like life itself. Now, what that shows you in the dream world is that if this inner mechanism, while you're sound asleep, can create whole relationships with people and adventures and experiences, then of course it's the same mechanism that does them in the world. You are dreaming your life. Life is a dream. Often people say that, or life is a dream within a dream within a dream. In Picnic at Hanging Rock, they said that, the original film, you might remember. So all your techniques, let's come back to these, all the ordinary techniques, they are there to only affect, awaken, turn on, and activate the invisible mechanism that we can call the higher mind, and unleash it to cause it to materialize what we want. Now, in this time we live, evolution is taking place. There's a wave of consciousness flooding through our galaxy, and it's bringing a new level of consciousness to the human race. It's like the Sentinel in the film 2001, that big black obelisk that flew through particular places, the planet obviously, to shift the consciousness and so on. Now, this is happening again, and you can see that the proof of that is we are already ascending into the heavens with the rockets. That is a spiritual concept, that the people will ascend into the heavens. We're doing it right now. It's been going on for quite a long time, several months, if not years. We are ascending from the planet in these rockets to become an interplanetary species. This is a sign of a push from the intelligence of life, from the invisible mechanism, that things are moving on. Now, as you probably noticed, the invisible mechanism does not have any favorites or preferences. You either tune in with it and do it, you learn the techniques, you involve yourself with it, or you suffer the consequences. And what we're finding out now is what is called the hollowing out, is what the Andy something of the chief economist of the Bank of England said, that society is hollowing out haves and have-nots. I've been talking about this in the future shocking kind of work that we've been doing together. So it's hollowing out, People are being cast aside. Some are going to have incredibly fabulous lives. Those ones, the pushers of, you know, the economy and going forward in life and inventions and businesses and things like that, they're going to have a great life. They're going to be the interplanetary species. Those that do not tune in with the higher mind and the higher intelligence, this invisible mechanism, will be the acorns from the oak tree. The oak tree throws down, as I often say, millions of acorns in its several hundred-year life. Some grow to oak trees, the others become squirrel food or mush in the ground. So the choice for everybody is becoming more and more stark. They've got to move quickly. They've got to get extra skills. They say that people leaving school now will have to reskill themselves 33 times in their life. Imagine that. 33 times. You're going to have to be a real learning machine. But the advantage of this, even though it's going to be sad for those who do not jump up and step up, as they say, to do it, what you are going to find is that, which will be encouraging people to rebuild your personal mind to a total belief in your powerful projection, your mind force of materialization. You see, people often say you attract things to you, and that's true in a sense, but what is really going on is that you are projecting your life experiences. You have the mind, your own mind, doing its thing, memories, new decisions, study, skills, whatever it is. The invisible intelligence responds to whatever is going on in your mind, and you can then move forward. This means rebuilding your personal mind to realize that everything is a projection. Imagine if you could have that knowledge really embedded within you, fully believed and accepted. Your life would transform. That's the best way to transform your life. You've got to be really pulled from that old part of the thing. So you could become a light worker, literally, while living your ordinary life. If you do this kind of work, you will drink in more light, because that's what's doing it. And you could become a light worker where wherever you go, people are influenced by your atmosphere. They're uplifted, they're encouraged, they feel better just by being in your company. This is what's happening. These are the types of people who will be the leaders and the most successful in life to come. And you can do that as the yogis do, as a hermit in the mountains. That's not so good these days. Or you can do it in daily life. Very, very good thing to do. See, a yogi, which is what these people actually are, whether they do the postures or not, a yogi takes on their world, their material world. These are not the hermits, they're the ones who live as householders, and they make it obedient to them. They use their everyday experiences, like mastering money, like having a good relationship, like having a happy time. And when they do that, then of course they're moving more towards what they all report as this incredible light within. Okay, so Muktananda said, unhappiness is nothing but the net of negative thoughts. And when one goes beyond those negative thoughts, one experiences bliss. And bliss is the energy, the feeling that goes along with this amazing, extraordinary, incredible mechanism that we've been talking about now. So it's certainly there's lots of secrets in it. It's not given out to the masses. It's only to people who are committed to personal development. That's absolutely true. And this is why I think it's very important that more people have the possibility of knowing this kind of information, because as you can see, as I've been saying, the world is getting in quite a challenging situation. We have talks of nuclear war all last week. I don't believe that's going to happen personally, but you never know. There might be something else equally as horrific. And there are lots of pressures around. The press is no longer reliable. We're finding all sorts of things. So now, in the old days, they used to say the yogis have come down from their forests, mountains, and deserts when the world is in a serious condition. So as you can see, yoga is coming in very, very big ways into the mainstream. There's 50 million people in America practicing yoga. It's time that this higher information was given for those who want to have a fabulous life as well as an extraordinary experience within themselves.